Welcome to Real Talk with Tamara. On today's show, I'm speaking with Carolyn Julius. She's calling in from Baltimore, Maryland to speak about her son, Deonte Julius. He was killed back in December 20th of 2014 and his case is gone cold. And his mom is calling in to get his case back out there and to speak about the circumstances surrounding his death and how the Baltimore, Maryland Police Department, if they've been of any help to her. Thank you, Miss Julius.
Thank you, Miss Tamara.
How you doing?
Finding yourself.
I'm doing very well. Happy to have made contact with you so that we can speak about your son's cold case homicide.
Yes, ma'am.
So Julius was killed back in December of 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, how was he killed?
Somebody walked up behind him and shot him in the back. I don't know how many times they wouldn't tell us that.
Do you all know why he was killed?
When he was killed, we don't. He was killed by some guys that he grew up with.
Uh-huh.
That they wanted him to, get on rides, and he wouldn't get on no rides, so they said he thought he was better than them. So they started, bothering with him. And it was like every day they would bother him. Then one day he was driving down the street and they just started shooting at his car.
Wow, and you said these were boys that he grew up with.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, had they been friends prior to that?
They was friends all the way up until he got out of senior high school. And then he, went off and got a job, and they went and got into gangs and stuff and was doing whatever they was doing. But because one lived behind him and the other one aunt lived next door from him, so the other guy was staying with his aunt. So since he lived right next door, my son would just wave to them, but they wasn't hanging together. He still would speak to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Miss Carolyn, you said that that the persons that killed him that murdered him were his childhood friends, and what makes you sure that they did it?
Well, because the day that he was driving down the street, when he got to the stop sign, one of the guys was standing outside and he waved at my son, and my son waved back, and as soon as he went through the stop sign, that boy started shooting at the car. So I told my son to call the police because at that time, he had a 2-year-old daughter, and I said she could have been in the car with his windows tinted. She could have been in the car and they didn't know it, and a bullet could have hit her. So he had called the police, and they locked the guy up. And the whole time he was locked up, he kept getting the one that lived next door to my son. He kept getting him to go over to my son's house, trying to bribe him with money to drop the case. And when my son would do it, every time we went to court, they kept postponing the case. And then the guy came back to my son and he said, well, if you don't drop the case, he said, you won't live to see your daughter's Christmas. So that's how we know it was definitely done. And then somebody in the neighborhood that was outside seen the guy come out the house and put what they call them, masks they put on their face during wintertime when it's cold out.
Those face masks?
Yeah.
Those, I forgot what they're called.
She seen him putting that on his face, and once he put that on his face, she said she pulled out a gun and then he walked out of her sight, and that's when she heard the gunshots. And then she was told that my son was the one that got shot, but she's scared to say anything.
Okay, so you say that a young lady was a witness. She actually saw the guy put on a face mask, and then she said that he got out of her sight and started shooting, but she saw the gun in the face mask, right?
Yes, yes.
So, whatever, did the police did question her, right?
No. The police haven't talked to her. She won't go to the police because she said the same thing that happened to my son could happen to her.
So she's afraid.
Yes.
So did you all initially tell the police about this young lady?
Yes.
Okay.
But the police said they said they put flyers out and they were knocking on doors and everybody kept telling them that they didn't see anything. So now they keep saying, well, it's nothing they can do until somebody comes forward. And even though the family is telling the police and a lot of my son's friends from the neighborhood that he still was friends with, they all know that these boys shot at his car. They all know that these guys was threatening to kill him. They told the police the same two names that we've been telling the police, but they still said it's hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
They said we had to have been out there to see him shoot my son.
Okay. So prior to your son being murdered, had your son, even if he did, this wouldn't matter, but had your son ever been to jail?
No. And that's what the police were surprised about. They said in 31 years he has never been in jail.
Uh-huh.
They were shocked about that.
Okay, so he never had it. Your son was 31, a 31-year-old black male, never had any trouble with the law, never been to jail, and they said they were surprised, as if a 31-year-old black male was supposed to, as if every 31-year-old black male is supposed to actually have trouble with the law?
Right. That's how the way they said, that's how I took it when they said that. Because I said it's a lot of guys out here that don't have a lot of black guys that don't have a criminal background.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when your son was in his car actually when he was driving.
The first time that they shot at him, yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
Ma'am.
I said, oh, wow. So they shot at him one time. They tried to kill him one time before.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you and I spoke prior, because we kind of talked about this, of course, and I kind of did some research also, and it's surprising to me that they don't even have a whole lot of articles, really just one article about him being murdered a few years ago. Like, I didn't really, there's nothing.
It's not that, and that's why I was going on every website putting the story out there, because when they showed it on TV, it was so fast that if you blinked your eye, you missed it.
Wow.
And then you didn't hear about it no more. And just like when they said that they was going door to door, a lot of people on that block said the police didn't come knock on their door.
Okay, so that was that. So they possibly didn't even do that, right?
Yeah. And we were telling the police that because when he killed my son had came out his house and walked 3 houses down, and that's when the guy came up behind him and killed him. Well, when he shot my son and he fell, the house that he fell in front of, the lady swear that she for the last 2 years, she's been swearing she had a video camera in her window because the people in the neighborhood was messing with their vehicles. So I told the police to go pull that lady videotape, and they said that they can't do that unless she's willing to bring the tape in.
So they've never even asked her if she would bring the tape down?
Nope.
Have you ever spoken with the lady?
No, I haven't. But my mom and have talked to her, and now she's saying that she doesn't have a video in her window.
So people are pretty, because you said this is a gang, right? These guys are gang-related guys, so people are just kind of paralyzed with fear as of right now. Now, you spoke about they tried to kill your son one time before, and you actually had him to go to the police to put a report on file. And then once he did that, they had a court date. Am I right? Because he knew who had shot at him the first time, right?
Yes, ma'am. The guy was still in jail, and he had to go to court. And when we went, they postponed the case, and they postponed the case 3 times. So the police officer, I cannot think of his name. He kept telling my son when he came out and got my son and took us up to the police department. When my son gave him the guy's name, he said that guy was bad news, that he had shot 3 people before my son, and the people that he shot would not press charges against him. And he kept saying, we want him bad, and he said that the guy was in the gang. He said, so we already know what type of person he is. We're going to put you in witness protection. We're going to pick you up in 24 hours. My son had all his stuff ready. Nobody showed up. We kept calling the detective, and he kept saying, oh, well, they trying to get your paperwork done. So then we went, the next court date we went to, once they postponed that court date, we went over to the state's attorney office, and that's when they had him finally fill out the paperwork to go into witness protection. But they still never picked him up. They never put him in witness protection.
Wow. So the police told him that they would put him in witness protection. Your son actually, after they tried to kill him the first time, the police said that they would put him in witness protection. Your son actually packed his things because he was ready to go to the witness protection on the day that they had agreed on, and they never came.
They never came and got him.
They said that they wasn't done doing the paperwork.
Correct.
And this guy was still in jail at the time that your son was supposed to go to witness protection.
Yes, he was still in jail.
Okay.
And he was still in jail, and we went down to the after they postponed the case, we went over to the state's attorney office, and he did the paperwork, and they never picked him up to put him in witness protection.
Wow. It sounds like to me, and this was the Baltimore, Maryland Police Department, am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my God. So it sounds like to me they really dropped the ball, especially if they knew that this guy was dangerous, and your son, they had already attempted his life one time before, and because they knew how dangerous that these people could be, that's the reason why they brought up a witness protection program, and they didn't put him in witness protection when they said that they would. I mean, oh my God. But Miss Julius, I'm gonna stop you right there so we can take a quick break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
If you have a loved one or a friend that was the victim of an unsolved homicide and the case has gone cold, or if you know of a missing persons case where the person has gone missing under suspicious circumstances and you would like to appear on Real Talk with Tamara with hopes of someone seeing the show that can solve the case, please give me a call. Since I've started doing these shows, I've received many calls with many clues. Please contact me at 901-801-2120 or email me at tamrathompson33@yahoo.com. Let us put your loved one's case back out there.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Tamara. On today's show, I've been speaking with Miss Carolyn Julius. She called in from Baltimore, Maryland to speak about her son, Deonte Julius. He was murdered back in December 20th of 2014, and his case has gone cold. And for those of you who are just tuning in, she talked about how his childhood friends actually murdered him because they had attempted to kill him one time before. And right before we went to break, she was talking about how her son went and filed a police report, and one of the guys was actually in jail. And the police had told her son that he was going to be put into the witness protection program. And the police dropped the ball on that, because the day he was supposed to be put into the witness program, he didn't hear anything. The witness protection program, he didn't hear anything from the Baltimore Police Department at all. Now, Miss Julius, after Deonte was killed, what did the police have to say about that? Because they knew that they were supposed to put him into the witness protection program so that to prevent this, right? They was actually supposed to be proactive, and now it seems like it's more of a being reactive, because now he's gone. You see what I mean? So
yes,
because they weren't proactive like they were supposed to be, what did they say after he was killed?
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. The police didn't call us and say he was sorry to hear about his murder. He didn't come over to the house to say anything. The state's attorney, when we because the last court date was set for January of this year. January of last year, I'm sorry. And we still went to the court. We still showed up at the courthouse. And the state's attorney said, well, he's not here to get on the witness stand, so we're going to have to throw the case out and let the young man out. And I said, well, when we went to the police department, they taped his they audio taped him telling his statement. And she said, we can't use that. And I said, it was done at the police department. And she said, we can't use that. We need him here, and he's not here. So we have to throw the case out.
So because see, I'm trying to wrap my mind around. I'm just kind of lost for words. I'm still trying to wrap my psyche around what just oh my God. Okay. So your son, after your son was murdered, they had a court date because they had already attempted to kill him the first time. And because they attempted to kill him the first time, the guy was in jail because he knew who it was, one of his childhood friends. And after they were supposed to put him into the witness protection program, the day that they were supposed to put him in there, that didn't happen. Although your son was willing to go and ready to go before this guy was even released from jail. And after your son was murdered, they said that they had to throw the court date out because he was gone.
Yes, ma'am.
By this time, the guy had been released.
Yes, they released him that same day.
Huh?
Yes. They released him the same day.
That your son was murdered?
No, the same day that we went to court in January.
So, was he locked up the day that your son was murdered?
Yes, but he got he got the other.
He got somebody. He
guy.
got the other ones to do it for him.
Yeah, that's the one that lived next door. That's the one that he was sending when the whole time he was locked up. He was sending the guy next door to come over and try to bribe my son with money not to go to court.
Wow. So.
And that's the one that shot him and killed him.
Oh my
The one
goodness.
next door.
Because prior he had been trying to bribe your son with money to drop the charges against the young man that attempted to kill him.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Miss Julius, what do you think is going to have to happen for a resolution, for that to be a resolution? We know that the one thing that we would want is for deonte, for this to have never happened, because it seemed like it could have been there was steps. If the steps had been taken properly, this could not have had to happen. But
Right.
what do you think is going to take for this to be resolved, since the worst has happened? Because that is the worst.
Yeah. The police got to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They got to go out here. I mean, you can't just think people going to walk into your office and tell you what they know. They already, to me, they gave up on his case. I don't want his case to be a cold case file. I want the police to do their job. Go out here, knock on doors, and question people. Pick these guys up. We're telling you who it was. Pick these guys up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing it.
Wow.
There's so many murders here that the police, they don't even care no more.
Wow.
But the family is the ones that have to look at these two guys every day, because they still live in the neighborhood. So they still walking up and down the street, and then when they get in front of my mom's house, they're staying right out front of her house. So, we can see that they still out on the street.
Now, did they ever question any of these young men ever?
Nope. They said they can't do it. They said because it's hearsay. They said if we had seen them do it, then they will pull them in and question them. But right now, they said they can't do anything.
Wow. So,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I'm not saying it because that was my son, but if you look at his, if you do a criminal background check on him, you'll see deonte, he's never been in trouble with the law. He didn't deserve it. Nobody deserves to get murdered.
That's true.
And
Even if he had gone to jail a couple times, he still did not deserve to be murdered.
That's right. And he thought he was doing the right thing by, going to the police when they shot at him driving down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, his daughter was 2 years old. All he did was went to work and to take care of his daughter. And now she's 3 now, and she has to grow up. And her father not here.
Right. How old was your granddaughter when he was killed?
She was 2.
Okay, so she would barely even remember him.
Oh no, she remembered him. She go through his pictures. When they first killed him, Christmas morning, she didn't want to play with none of her toys enough, but she just laid around. She wasn't her happy-go-lucky self. And then she started going through the phones, and she would point at his pictures and say, Dad. And then when somebody come through the door, she would look at the door to see if it was him coming in. So I think she felt something was going on.
Wow.
And then not seeing him, it really started.
So it's already, even though she's a baby, it's already affecting her at an early age, as it would, because we know it has an effect on them as they get older. But it's already affecting her as a baby because she was a smart little baby.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So how has this taken a toll on you? How has this affected you?
It's hard because some days I get really upset with the police because they're not doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me so angry with them. And then I have to say, wait a minute, I can't walk around being angry all the time. You know, it hurts because he's not here. But I can't walk around being angry all the time. I just have to wait and see if they ever going to do what they need to do, and that's pull those two guys in. Once they pull them in, I can start trying to be okay with his murder. Right now, it's like I have to be the one to try to make sure that I keep his name out there. I don't want nobody to forget about him. I didn't even know. My son had a lot of friends. I mean, people that I didn't even know he knew. They were saying, "Oh, he was a good person." You know, he talked to me about I need to get back into school because that's the type of person he was. He always tried to help people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's hard, but I'm okay as long as I know that.
I'm going to ask you this. Do you feel like because your son grew up in a certain area, do you feel like his case has been disregarded?
I do believe so. I really do. And I believe if he had been living in the county somewhere, they would have, made sure that they did what they could do to find his killer. But because he from the city in East Baltimore and he's black, police just want to give up on him, and that's not fair.
Mm-hmm. At any point, I'm just going to ask you, how did the police, or I should ask you, do you feel in your heart or in your mind, do you feel that they felt a certain way about these being your son's ex-friends?
Can you repeat that, please?
Do you feel like the police felt a certain way about these young men being his ex-friends?
Yes. To me, the police act like it's like they think it's more to the story, and we just not telling them. But we told them what went on. But it's like, to me, they act like that we're not telling them the truth. So since we're not telling them the truth, then they're not going to do what they need to do.
Okay, so you think there's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The police think that every black guy in the city is into drugs, selling drugs, or robbing people.
Mhm. So you feel, as far as you're concerned, you feel like they think that your son was involved in gang activity with these young men?
Yes.
Okay, even though he's never been to jail, he's never been arrested, nothing.
Nothing. Never been in no gangs, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He was a hard-working young man.
Mm-hmm. Because, as you was talking, I kind of, I've heard, because I interview I interview a lot of families, and a lot of families, when they call and their children's cases have gone cold, they always express that because they live in a certain area, because I grew up in the projects, and I grew up around a whole lot of things, but because I grew up in the projects, just because I grew up in there and there were people doing a whole lot of things, I was not a part of that. You see what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
And so a lot of people that I've interviewed feel like because their children grew up in an area and they may have been friendly, because a lot of people in the area that I grew up in when I was younger, a lot of those people that I grew up around, like I said, they were into a lot of things. And even though I was not a part of that, I still was, we still may have spoken to each other. I still may have been friendly with them. I just was not a part of that. Because I lived in that environment. You know what I mean? I lived in that area. So I don't think that it's fair to stereotype a person just because they live in an area. You feel like, well, they're around these people. When you live in an environment, you're going to be around those people. That's where your son resided. That's where he grew up at. It's not fair to say, well, just because he lives here, he must be a part of that.
Right. And that's just like, you know, they grew up from little boys from 6, 7 years old. Then once they got older and them boys chose the wrong side of life, my son didn't deal with them. Mm-hmm. But the thing, like the police think, well, they all grew up together, so if they like this, then that means your son had to be like that too. But no, he wasn't. That's why they murdered him, because he wouldn't be like them. And so because he wasn't like them, he didn't want to, you know, be friends with them no more. He would speak to them, but he didn't want to hang with them because he knew what they were into, and he didn't want to get caught up in that. Mm-hmm. But the police said, like, well, he had to be into it because they all grew up together. They all from the same area. That's not true, though.
Wow. So how often do you get updates about his cold case homicide?
I have to call the police because I have to call the detective. He doesn't call me at all, and I call him once a week. And for the last 2 months, he has not been returning my phone calls.
Wow. What do you want to see? What do you want to see the Baltimore Police Department do? What would you like to see them do?
I would like for them to pick these 2 guys up and question them. Search their houses for weapons. They will find a murder weapon. They may find it on them when they pick them up.
Mm-hmm. And at least try and question the young lady who saw the guy with the gun and shooting, right?
Yes. And that December the 20th, it was nice out, so it was a couple of people outside, and the police didn't even go across the street and talk to the guys that was across the street on the steps.
Wow.
It's like they just talked to us and that was it. They said they went door to door, but they didn't go door to door. A lot of people in that neighborhood said, no, the police ain't come to my house.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, Miss Julius, I sincerely thank you for opening up and calling. Of course, you know, we're going to have Mr. Matthew Fogg on. He's going to come on and do some commentating and speak about your son's cold case homicides. And he's going to just do some commentating about a lot of the murders of African American men and cases that go cold, you know. But I thank you, because your son was just killed a couple years ago, so I know it's still fresh on you.
Yes, it's only been a year. I thank you. I mean, I really thank you. I just need people to know that what the police not doing. Why pay them if they're not doing their job? Mm-hmm. It's been a year now, and the police don't even call you and say, well, you know, we're still working on the case, or they don't call you and say anything. They should at least call you once a month, or at least return your phone calls when they see you calling them.
Wow.
And tell you something. But they just ignore your phone call, and I guess they figure I'm not going to call back, but I'm going to keep calling. My family going to keep calling because we want justice for deonte.
Right, that's true. In closing, what would you like to say? What would you like the public to know?
I would like the public to know that my son, he was a good young man. He had a 2-year-old daughter and that was his only child, and he loved his daughter. He loved his little girl. I want the public to know that I need their help to get these two guys caught so they can go do their time for murdering my son. So if somebody knows something, I wish somebody would please speak out so we can get justice for deonte.
Wow. And if, I know, you know, I always say, because I believe that when people pass on, that their spirits still linger. I really do. If your son could hear you, what would you like to say?
I would like to tell him that I love him, and I'm so proud of the young man he was and the father he was. Mm-hmm. And I just want him to know that I love him and I think about him every day. And I'm going to do what I can do to be a nuisance to the police department and see they do their job and call us up and say, okay, we have your son's murderers in jail.
Amen. All right, well, Miss Julius, I sincerely thank you for doing this interview. Like I said, I know Dante's murder. He just passed away. It hadn't even been 2 years. I said 2 years because he died December 20th of 2014. So it really hadn't even been a year and a half yet. It's just been a fresh year, really. So like I said, I know that your heart is still heavy. I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a child, and let alone, some people don't even know who's murdered their children, but to know who did it, and they're still walking around out there, and you can see them. Like you said, your mom sees them every day.
Every day.
And
every
you know,
day.
And that's another thing. Your mother sees them every day. How does the police know that she's not in danger? You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's why everybody had tried to talk my mom into moving, but my mother said, I'm not going to let them run me out of my neighborhood. And everybody's still worried about her. But do you think, right after they killed her, do you think the police sent a police car around to watch her house? No, they didn't do that. It was like they didn't even care. They didn't send nobody to keep an eye on her, nothing.
Wow. Well, like I said, I sincerely thank you for calling in and doing this interview, calling in from Baltimore, Maryland. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Real Talk with Tamara. I was speaking with Miss Julius. She's the mother of Deonte Julius, and she called in to speak about her son who was murdered December 20th of 2014. And the case has gone cold. And for those of you who are just tuning in at the end, and I'm going to have Mr. Fogg on, Chief Matthew Fogg on, to do some commentating about this particular case. Miss Julia spoke about how her son, they had his childhood friends, they believe his childhood friends killed him because they had attempted to kill him one time before. And because he decided to file a report and press charges, the young man who actually tried to kill him was in jail. Miss Julia spoke about how these young men were not her son, but the young men were gang related, and they held some kind of vendetta against her son because he was not a part of that. And he was actually supposed to go into the witness protection program, but the police, while the young men were in jail, but the police actually said that they didn't have the paperwork ready on the day that he was supposed to go, and and her son actually was murdered right before the court date. So we're pleading to the Baltimore Police Department, because this case is cold. We're pleading to please open to please go. His mom just want them to just go and speak with persons that was actually out there, because there was people out there that day that her son was killed, you know. And she spoke about how a lot of people said that they weren't even questioned, but the Baltimore Police Department seems to feel like they need to come in if they want to be questioned. That's kind of backwards, but you know, like I said, there's hope. So we're sincerely hoping that this case can be solved to give Miss Julius peace. And Deonte also has a 3-year-old daughter. You know, this has affected his whole family. He has a daughter that will never see him again. She's 3 years old, and he won't get a chance to be a part of her life. So if anyone would come forward, anybody, that would be a blessing, because we have to put ourselves in Miss Julia's shoes, and if it was us, we would definitely want, since there were people out there that saw it, we would definitely want someone to come forward. But at the same time, the Baltimore Police Department is going to have to be proactive and not reactive like they are now. You know, when people come forward, they have to know that they're going to be protected. You know, they have to know that they're going to be protected. I'm not going to go on preaching, but the truth is just the truth, you know. Be proactive. But I want to thank you all for tuning in to Real Talk with Tamara.
Can you only imagine? Can you imagine just standing before the King? Oh, I can only imagine what it would be like when I walk by your side. I could only imagine, yeah, what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. I could only imagine to be surrounded by your glory. What will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I could only imagine. Yeah, I could only imagine. I could only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I could only imagine when all I will do is forever worship you. I could only imagine. I could only imagine to be surrounded by your glory. What will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
This has been a Tamara's Productions.